There is not a single thing left on these walls. This house is almost empty, and it is the end of a very short-lived era, which is me living in this house in LA. In case you don't know, if you're not caught up, I moved here in July, and I lived here for a short few months before I went back to Nashville, and then I came back here like a week ago, but I've already found a new apartment, and I'm moving into that in like 2 days. So it's been kind of a whirlwind, as they say. If I took anything away from the past year and moving and everything that happened, it's just that I rushed into a lot of things and I created more regrets last year than I usually do. So I'm here, I'm moving into a new apartment, and I'm trying to just rewrite those mistakes, if that makes sense. Like when we decided to move to LA last year, which was kind of this pivotal moment in my life, we decided a month before we moved. Like we literally had 30 days to find a place and then move into it. And it was stressful because it was us deciding to move with roommates. We decided to buy a really expensive Tesla at the same time for some reason that we really couldn't afford, but we just didn't think about it. It was just a very crazy time. And I just thought everything would work out. Like I realized in the past month that I have this outlook on life that I just think everything's gonna be fine. I don't know if it's dissociating or being dumb or having privilege or what it is, but I just think that you can do essentially whatever and it's gonna be fine. Like it's this very unrealistic view of the world that stuff just goes your way no matter what. And that belief definitely bit me in the ass this year. Like more than any other year of my life. I think because I'm getting older, so my decisions are getting more and more serious, like the more that life goes on. That was not a good mindset for me to have at this point in my life. The biggest reason being that we ended up moving in with roommates when we moved in June. And I don't think I thought enough about what it would be like, but I think we just had so little time to make the decision. So it kind of felt like we had to do it. Like we wanted our roommates to move out to LA because they were in a band with my husband, and it was just a whole thing. It's hard to explain, but they couldn't really afford LA by themselves. So we were like, okay, let's just all move together and we'll help them out and we'll all live in a house together and it'll be fine. And like, it was fine. It wasn't bad. And like, it was a good roommate situation, but it just wasn't right. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right house. It wasn't the right group of people. Like you can definitely live with roommates and be married, but it's not ideal. It just kills the whole married vibe. Like it makes you feel like you're not really married. And so if you don't have to be in that situation, like if you're not forced to live with roommates, like obviously it's ideal not to, but we didn't realize that at the time. Or Emin did. He was terrified. Like he was really, really thinking it wasn't gonna work out. And I was just like, no, it's gonna be fine. Like, don't worry about it. Everything's gonna work out. And like, theoretically it did work out. Like it's not like my life, went down in flames and everything was horrible, but we're kind of back to square one now because Emin and I decided to break the lease, last month or whatever. And all of the roommates moved out of this house. One of them had to move back to Florida where he's from because like I said, they just can't really afford to be in LA right now. And we're basically right back to where we were when we first moved to LA. So like we went through all of this and like essentially inconvenienced people just for no reason. Like it was for no reason because now we're just here alone, back exactly where we were before. And it just sucks because it would have been avoided had we just waited and thought it through. Like we rushed so much to get here only to realize it wasn't the right situation to come out here. And I just wish we never did it. Not because it wasn't fun or rewarding or life-changing, because I really think it totally was. Just because I inconvenienced 3 other people and caused unnecessary problems, and I just wish that didn't happen. But I can't go back in time. I can't go back in time, so I'm just here moving into my new apartment. We're alone and we're moving. The good news though is that this situation definitely caused me to snap out of that weird mindset that I was in. I was essentially forced to sell my expensive car. I had to find a new apartment. I had some crazy fights with my husband and like some serious mental breakdowns. Like there's a TikTok of me just crying like 2 months ago because I felt like my world was falling apart. We really built up this whole life when we first moved to LA, and then it just felt like it was crumbling and everything was changing, and change is so scary when you didn't expect it and you don't know where it's going and you don't know what's gonna happen next, and you're married, so like you're dealing with your own feelings and somebody else's, and like you have to not like fight or get mad at each other in the meantime, or like try not to, because it just makes it worse. Like, oh my God, it was just annoying. It was so annoying and it was so stressful. Like for the entire year of 2021, I was just living blindly and just convincing myself that everything would be okay and it would work out. But the year ended and it didn't work out. Like things didn't magically snap into place, and I actually hurt people and spent money and cried a lot in the process. I definitely am getting out of that, trance that I was in for the past year. and I started to wake up. And it's great. Like, it's really good. It feels really, really nice to finally wake up to things. But the issue with that is that it makes you realize all of your mistakes that you ignored. And that's just a whole other thing. For example, over the past few years, I've gotten into a really bad habit of not texting people back. I used to be a pretty engaged friend, and like, I didn't ignore people. I never left people in red. I always text people back, but I stopped doing that. And like, I've gotten pretty comfortable just not texting people back. And I hate that. Like, I want nothing more than to respond and have good conversation and catch up with my friends who are texting me or whatever. And I complain all the time about how I have no friends, but I totally have people who talk to me that I don't always respond to, and I feel so bad for it. But I'm just like, oh, I'll just respond later. And it just builds up. Like, the text just build up, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to read my old text because there's too many texts. And then once I start a conversation with somebody, I can't finish it, and then I feel guilty. So I've just become like a really bad friend recently. So it's good that I'm realizing that, but it's also bad at the same time. Like, you don't want to feel guilty. So I think that's part of the reason why I ignored my feelings and my problems and my mistakes for so long. But it's just hard. Like, admitting something that you did wrong is hard, and it's embarrassing, and I hate being embarrassed, and I hate admitting my faults. I also realized that my like work-life balance is really terrible. Like, most people have a 9-to-5 job that they can clock out of, but I do YouTube for a living, so I'm constantly either procrastinating or working last minute late into the night. Like, I'm painfully aware now of how stressed and behind I am all the time, and it's like really hard to take. Like, I'm a weak person. Like, I feel a cold breeze on my arm, and I feel like I'm stuck in the Arctic and I'm never gonna get out. Like, I have this survival instinct that just kicks in when I'm hungry, when I'm tired. Like, I'm so dramatic, but not because I want to be. Like, it genuinely feels like things are the end of the world. And so I am not gonna be some person who's like grind all the time, gonna run myself into the ground and like work for years and never take care of myself. Like, some people do that, especially as YouTubers. Like, that's a very popular, romanticized thing, to like do your best all the time, no matter how tired you are. Like, I didn't sleep for years and now I have 10 million subscribers. Like, that's totally a thing, but I just can't do it. Like, I can't do it. It physically doesn't work for me. But I'm also not like some healthy, productive person. Like, I just procrastinate and I waste time and I ignore my responsibilities. And so that, combined with being lazy and behind, I just end up with this weird schedule of like getting motivated and then falling behind and then cramming everything at the last second. And it just sucks. It just really sucks. So I'm totally waking up to my problems and realizing all of my faults and my flaws. And it does not mean that I'm fixing them, because that is really hard. But at least I'm being aware of them. Like, I was just straight up ignoring them for so long. And that's the thing with ignoring. Like, it doesn't matter how much you do it, it's gonna come back and it's gonna smack you in the face. And that's what happened to me in December. So I'm going into my new house, and I really want it to be like a symbol of my new life. And it feels like it's gonna be that. So I don't know. Everything could go wrong, and I don't want to set unrealistic expectations for myself, but I honestly feel like I died and was reborn over the past 3 years. And that's like not an exaggeration. I mean, it is an exaggeration, but I'm just saying, like, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, maturity wise, like my beliefs, like everything. I feel like it was just stripped to its core, and I was pushed to my emotional limits. And it literally, like, I look back on who I was a couple years ago and I'm like, who is that? Like, me before I left Cimarelli, before, you know, I turned 19 or so, like, I'm like, who the hell is that woman and what is she doing in my house? Like, I changed so much. I learned a really hard truth recently, that there's fake confidence and there's real confidence. And unfortunately, I think real confidence is earned by failing and trying and putting yourself out there and doing really, really scary, terrible stuff, and then growing your confidence. I think just before, you know, I went through all the stuff that I went through in the past couple years, I had a lot of fake confidence, and I convinced myself that I was somebody that I wasn't, and everything got stripped away from me, like, emotionally. And so I grew like real confidence. Like, that's how I feel. I feel like I grew some real confidence, and I feel like I really sprouted even more in such a weird term, but I feel like I grew even more in December of this past year and in the past couple months. Like, and so I just am excited to go into this new house with like a clean slate, literally. I think this is the true beginning of my young adult era, and I'm excited to make decisions that I'm really confident in and that I thought through, and stuff that I know is gonna make my life better. Like, I'm looking forward to not rushing and to just calm down and have a good, simple life. I'm just excited to start all of this with this new chapter of mine. So everybody say goodbye to the white room. This is my little white room. I guess I'll see you guys not in my new house. I don't know. I don't know what the schedule is, but I'll see you guys in a couple days. Goodbye.